Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours with 10% off using code FD10. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and I'm about to make you feel very old because did you know it's 30 years of the Kia Sportage? But yes, 1993 was the first time a Sportage graced the streets, and we're going to take a quick look today through the evolution of this model. It's not often you get a chance to do this, so it's quite an exciting thing to see how this car has evolved from what was once a proper little early generation SUV, a sanitised off-roader basically with some comfy bits, all the way to the very latest one, which is packed with technology and a very comfortable and incredibly safe place to be. So let's have a look around from generation 1 all the way to generation 5. Now believe it or not, I do actually remember the first time I saw a Sportage, and I did call it a Sportage when I read the Boots badge when I first saw it. I was actually at a car supermarket with my friend Barry, who you may have seen in the Volvo to Gothenburg video earlier this year, and we were browsing around. I was very taken with the Mazda Zedos 6, believe it or not. He though had just seen this thing and thought it was fascinating. I thought it was ridiculous and would never take off. But look at us now, Zedos consigned to history, Sportage still going strong. At the time there was very little else like it. The Toyota RAV4 was a pioneer of this kind of thing. The Suzuki Vitara and the Jimny of course have been around for a while. In terms of small SUV-like vehicles, it was a very, very tiny market. Land Rover's Freelander didn't turn up until about 4 or 5 years after this either. So it had the market to itself. So it really was an oddity in the mid-90s. So let's begin at the beginning and start with the Mark 1, all the way back from 1993. Well, technically not 1993, because although it came out in that year in other markets, notably its home market in South Korea, it didn't reach the UK until 1995. And this kind of blew my mind a little bit. In the early years of Sportage sales here in Europe, these were put together by Karmann in Osnabrück in Germany. Think Karmann gear, think Volkswagen, think convertible Beetles, that kind of stuff. You never normally are going to think Kia Sportage, but they did up until 1998. They brought them over here. So the Mark 1 is perhaps the most visually different to the rest of the range because it looks like so many of the other early days of small SUVs. It almost looks like a very small, cute version of a big, chunky off-road thing with the ability to go anywhere, do anything, and just cope with absolutely whatever the world can throw at it. This, though, was like the Freelander and the RAV4, designed to be a road car, but with the ability to do proper off-road stuff. And we look inside there, we've got all the gear levers and things that make it into a genuine off-roader, which is something we notice change as customer expectations change over the following 3 decades. But very much in the style of the 1990s. Look at all this fantastic dual colour body cladding here on the bottom of the doors, these sill extensions, the arch extensions, but it looks quite cool. It also looks almost like from a distance that it's got steel wheels, but they aren't. These are alloy wheels. This is the 1990s when alloy wheels were the ultimate accessory. Looking at it from a 4x4 off-roader's point of view, it's actually very good. We've actually got quite good breakover angles with the wheels very close to the corners, and it looks like it could happily accommodate a winch. I doubt it really could though, but it is body on frame. It actually shares its underpinnings with the Mazda Friendly Bongo. Well, some of the underpinnings anyway, not based directly on it, and it is a ladder chassis. This is the only one of this lineup that's a body on frame like a traditional off-roader. And to that end, it will have different driving dynamics, which we'll find out about in a minute. And around the back it is more proper off-road, get into the outback and that kind of thing. We've got an externally mounted spare wheel which actually swings away so you can get into the boot, but I won't open it now because there's a hedge. But as well as the chunky off-roader swing away spare wheel, we've also got a spoiler on the back. But then going back to off-road practicality, roof rails. Now pop the bonnet on a Mark 1 Sportage, and in the early days you're only going to find a single choice of a 2 litre 128 horsepower 4-cylinder petrol engine, which is actually slightly stolen from Mazda. Later on there was a 117 horsepower diesel 4-cylinder as well. Now as much as the exteriors of these cars can pin them to a particular generation or period in time, the interiors do perhaps even more so. So let's jump inside the Mark 1 first of all, and we've got lots of chrome recessed stuff. It looks so 1990s with these square windows and quarter lights and so what have you. Stepping inside though, it is even more 1990s. In fact, being a 1993 origin, it actually looks a bit 1980s with these square little buttons for the electric windows. But we have got 4 electric windows. Bear in mind, this was quite an exciting thing going back a few years. I love the tweed. This tweed seating is so tough. The ergonomics, though, are radically different from today. We have got a lovely big tea shelf, so they were clearly thinking very sensibly about our amenities and needs when it comes to cups of tea on the road. And very Rover-like over here, we've got a tiny digital clock. but it is utterly 1990s with the swathes of elephant hide plastic all across the dashboard, but very, very swoopy as well, which is again a very, very 1990s look and indeed feel. And curiously, the dials and the buttons do have quite an American appearance to them. Enormous button for our mirrors to move, almost as big as the mirrors themselves in fact. The dials are big, clear and basic. That's kind of all you need in many ways. Moving across, we've got a couple of little tiny air vents. We've got the most simple heating and ventilation system here. It does though have air conditioning, which is a really nice addition on a car from this long ago. Is amazing. Not the original radio, big old ashtray because the past, lighter socket, Mars bar slot, and this is where things do get quite interesting. We've got a 5-speed manual gearbox on almost a Range Rover Classic level of long gear shifter just there. It's a good sort of 30 plus centimetres of shifter, but then this is really exciting. We've got a high-low ratio thing here. We've got 4-wheel drive low, so we've got proper rock crawling, get through anything level stuff. In high ratio, we've got 4-wheel drive, or you can just drop it to 2-wheel drive if you want to save fuel and so forth. So right now we are in 4-wheel drive high, and that's just amazing, really, isn't it? Then of course we have got the steering wheel. Quite a simple looking, again, very 1990s. If you could distill the 1990s into an interior, this would be it. And just a simple 4-spoke, very American looking steering wheel with this 4 stubby spokes. Horn. Oh, that's a cute but trailblazing part from the early days of the SUV. We like that. Jumping into the back of the car, lots more tweed, built-in headrests and seat belts for 5 and a ton of headroom. This, like the early Freelanders, fold those seats down. It's nice and simple, nice and basic, not a lot to go wrong. It is pure 90s motoring, but with incredible practicality. Very simple and very basic. Let's jump in the Mark II and see how things evolve. So after the Mark I went off sale in 2003, there was actually a 2-year gap with no Sportages. What were we to do? To wait 2 years for the Mark II to turn up. And this is where things get visually a little bit interesting, because this is clearly derived from off-roaders of the past as the early embryonic days of the SUV. The styling on this is when there's a slightly weird period of styling, let's be honest. But let's look at the Hyundai Coupe. You may recall the red Mark II that I had. The Mark I Hyundai Coupe, beautiful, absolutely stunning, tiny Ferrari. The Mark II, wacko. This thing follows that same school of thinking here at Kia. We've got the same extensive use of chunky plastic, so we've got the chunky contrast colour bumper. We've got the bodywork extensions around the arches, the doors. We haven't got the sills anymore because styling times have changed, of course. But yeah, the overall look and the dynamic is slightly ungainly, let's be honest. But the car has grown a little bit, and this is now noticeably a bit chunkier. We've got the rounded, smooth shapes of the clearly early 1990s curviness. Here in the early part of the millennium, this chunky, angular, off-kilter look. Normally when you look at the next generation of a model of car, you can see styling cues that have carried over. In this case, there are virtually none. I think basically the roof rails are the only similarity, and the fact it's got grey bumpers. It's not even got the spare wheel on the boot anymore. But under the skin there are lots of changes as well. But apart from getting bigger, it's built on a completely new platform. The Mark I was built on the Mazda Kia Ford Bongo platform, and of course that business tie-up brought us the Kia Pride, the first Kia with its white wall tyres, and which is also known of course as the Ford Festiva in Australia and America. You may want to follow the link to a review of that one up above my head somewhere. This one though is built on a Kia Mentor platform, so more of a car-based platform. So gone are the days of the proper off-road workhorse masquerading as a car. We are now into the realms of car masquerading as off-roader. And whereas that was always all-wheel drive with the option, incredibly in some markets, of a 2 or a 4-door body, and an extended body at that, if you wanted to order that. This though, always 4-door, well 5-door technically, always front-engined, but then you get the option here of front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. This particular one is 4-wheel drive, and you have the choice not only of a 2-litre petrol, but of a 2.7-litre V6, which is kind of cool. So into the Mark II, gone are the lovely flush-fitting 90s door handles here. We've got these pull-out handles, door climbing inside. It was so much more modern. We've got some faux leather on the doors. We've still got 4 electric windows, but we've now got one-touch auto down on the drivers. The door pockets are bigger and designed to take a bottle, so the car's evolved already. Everything just feels so much more modern. Okay, it is a decade newer, but it just feels like such a different vehicle. It doesn't feel related even, because everything has gone. The late 80s, early 90s chunky American buttons have disappeared. The steering wheel now has a leather rim. Hang on, let's do the horn test quickly. Ooh, that parp has grown up significantly. The seats, no longer are they those hard-wearing utilitarian tweed jobs. Now it's kind of hard velour centres with a lovely stripy pattern and some sort of vinyl edges, making the thing feel so much more comfy, and no longer feels like a utilitarian thing that a farmer might use. It now feels like something you're going to take into town. Our T-shelf though has significantly suffered. We've got an airbag on top, so any crockery you stick on there is going to be in your face in the event of an accident. We've only got a tiny area here for snack storage, but we do still have our little digital clock here in the centre of the dashboard. Curious placement for the fog light button up here on the top. Big double din radio, and much more familiar to the modern eye controls for the heating and ventilation. Across on the passenger side, it's interesting how the air vents are beveled around towards the passenger and flow into the door. The design has really stepped up in this car, and we've even got an FM bar for passengers if you do want to take it off-road, because this is still an all-wheel drive equipped vehicle, so you can go off-road in this thing still. The dials though look so much more interesting. There's no more additional information in here. We've just still got rev counter, speedo, temperature and fuel, and a little LCD thing for your mileage. There's no additional information, but the styling and the design and the graphics just make the thing look just a bit more special, which is kind of fun. Likewise on the stalks, check out the number of different things. We'll be using those wipers in a second. Lights, and curiously, this is unusual on a car from this late, indicators on the right hand side. That is very unusual for a car this late on. In the centre, what is quite interesting is how we've now got a huge area in this console which is completely cut away. So we've got a big bit of storage here. We've also got cup holders, so you can tell this is thought about for the American market. We didn't have cup holders in the previous one. We've also got a 6-speed manual gearbox, absolutely fantastic. So sticking with the manual gearbox because, well, it's sensible times. And you've got an enormous rear seat area. Again, lots and lots of space, room for activities. So, moving from Generation 2 to 2010, when we've got Generation 3, a completely different car, completely all new from the ground up, designed by Peter Schreier. It looks more modern, more aggressive, it's bigger, longer, lower, wider, uncut, probably. And now, while the first generation had been built mostly in Korea, briefly dabbling with in Germany, the second generation, whilst it had mostly been built in Korea, European models had started being built in Slovakia, which is where we find this car was built as well for the European market. But styling wise, Generation 3 is where the Sportage grew up and suddenly became incredibly popular, because every generation sold more than the last. But Generation 3, it looks so modern, so car-like, so cutting-edge SUV that it really did hit the mark and sold in incredible droves. Everything about it looks so much more integrated in the way the design works. We've got these lovely flutes across the bonnet, we've got this big singular curve from the headlights through the grille. Everything works together really nicely in this model. Moving around the side, and we've lost a lot of the plastic claddings. We have still got some body mouldings down here, which do of course help for body repair in the future if you do have a little fender bender, but the thing looks very sleek. We've got this dropping roof line and nice bits of chrome. Kia do some lovely little styling details on their cars, makes them feel far more premium than perhaps the price point might suggest. And around the back it just actually resolves quite nicely. It's a very big slab of a rear end because, well, SUVs are just so much metal and glass to fill that extra height, but we've got huge rear space and an enormous boot with, dare I say it, a full-size spare wheel. It's got a proper full-size spare wheel in there. Amazing. This is an amazing generation of the Sportage, and amazingly it doesn't even have my favourite bugbear, the power tailgate thing, which just is too slow. This is quite a nice generation. Now the Mark III is another huge step on again. We've still got the pull-out door handles, but they've gone from body colour painted and a bit angular and not quite as nice a plastic to a very nice feeling chromy stuff. So the door on this car feels very tall indeed as you glance at it, because, well, it is. Got a big speaker, big area with room for bottles in the door. Same layout as in the previous generation, exactly the same layout in fact. Dashboard has changed yet again, so enormous sloping T-shelf, so lots of room for sandwiches and non-rollable snacks, but anything that's going to roll off into your lap is a danger. Now one notable thing about this car is we've gone from a blade key in this generation to the flippy out keys, which were oh so popular throughout the noughties up until not that long ago. Ooh, little Kia soldiers went by. They're cool, aren't they? Here we go. We've now got a massively different dashboard with so much more going on. Again, we've only got the same 4 basic bits of information: revs, speed, temperature fuel, but the layout is now like of a spaceship. It's of the Starship Enterprise, as people used to say rather unfunnily. But the little LCD square from the bottom of the Mark II is now this beautiful little circle thing. God, it's only 8.5 degrees outside, no wonder it's getting chilly. The font layout is actually really quite interesting and exciting as well, and this is proper nerd spec stuff. But look at how the numbers, the baseline of the number is now following that circle around the dial rather than being the correct way up as you would expect it to be. It looks really cool on the rev counter, but over here on the temperature gauge, that's how you'd expect things to be, correct way up. That is really quite exciting and cool. I like this a lot. In the center, we've got a completely integrated stereo, so not even a single or a doubled in, completely integrated stuff. As we've noticed in a couple of recent Kia reviews, we've got this silver edged around a tactile center, which makes the thing just feel additionally premium. Also, this entire dashboard area is multi-surfaced and multi-textured, so we've got a rubberized area up here, then we've got this smooth semi-matte kind of satiny finish down here, then it steps back under here for heating and ventilation, dual zone climate now, so that's cool. Stepping down here, you'll notice no longer an ashtray, because you know it's the modern times, very few people smoking cars these days. But we have still got a 12-volt socket for the lighter power stuff, but we've also got USB and an aux in, so that's really cool. And a little area here, which is just the right size for a Nokia mobile phone. Now, rather wonderfully, we have got a manual gearbox just here, which I'm fully in approval of, but curiously, it's only a 5-speed in this particular vehicle, which feels a little bit unusual in today's money. And we've got what looks like either actual leather or very good fake leather with contrast lighter coloured stitching for the actual seats, which are a very different shape as well. They're a lot flatter now than they were previously. And moving into the back, this is more buckety. And up above, we've now got a very big sunroof indeed. In fact, this car is equipped with 2 of the things. There is one little throwback to the past though, the fuel filler release down here. But then things move on even more and become even more futuristic with the next one. So after 6 years, in 2016, the Mark III gave way quite logically to the Mark IV. And this is the period when the government wanted us to be driving diesels, of course. So whereas the first car came with a choice of 2-litre petrol and later a single diesel, this one came with 3 choices of diesel, a 1.6, 1.7 and 2-litre. Also came with a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed DCT gearbox. So lots and lots of choices. Also, choice was the key with this car. So there's something for literally everyone. Whereas Mark I came in 2, then 3 trim levels, this came in 9 trim levels, including GT line, so trying to make the thing more sporty, more appealing to the Range Rover Evoque kind of market, which it absolutely did. Where they sold 95,000 examples of the Mark III, they sold nearly 200,000 of the Mark IV, which is astonishing. And again, you can see how the style of the car has just evolved again. So where we had the gentle curve in the middle of the Mark III bonnet and little edges that rise up here, we've got far more aggressive lines, similar lines. This is whereas Mark I and Mark II were completely separate cars, almost like the first version of Casino Royale back with David Niven, then suddenly it became the all-new James Bond. This is kind of what's happened with Mark I, Mark II. Mark III is Sean Connery, which I guess makes this one Pierce Brosnan, probably, judging by the age distance. That one over there, though, is Daniel Craig. Now the Mark IV is up to the key game yet again, but we also have proximity-aware pushy button things, so we can just tap the button on the outside of the car if that's in your pocket, climb aboard, and the car will even sing a little song to you when you climb in. Isn't that cute? Welcome to Kia. Engine start stop. This is the first time we've seen an engine start stop in any of these things. Door is open. All right, blimey. We've now got a completely different kind of interior. It is so much more digital and modern. So we've got a huge amount of information being broadcast to us in high definition in the center. We've got a rev counter on the left, speed on the right with subdials inside them now. So it's all completely changed. The T-shelf game though has been upped significantly. So we now have got a lovely big empty flat space. It's great for a cup of tea, pot of tea even if you want. You can have sandwiches, scones, cream, the whole gamut of an afternoon cream tea just here can be living up here on your dashboard. Gone is a little separate digital clock. We've now got it here on the large infotainment screen. We've got an SD card slot for the map in there. We've got piano black and we've got lots of buttons. Fantastically, this is a great thing at this point in car design. We have still got a huge number of buttons. We've still got 12 volt down here. We've got aux, USB, a second 12 volt, big cubby just here. And this is the curious thing that seemed to happen in the mid-teens. We've got two different sizes of cup holder, the big one at the back and a small one at the front. Surely people go to McDonald's and they both buy a cup of tea or coffee. Why do they do this? Seat Leons are very guilty of this as well. But more importantly than that, we have got a manual gearbox again, fabulous. 6-speed now, also fabulous. But also we've got a lock button for the centre differential, and we've got hill descent control. So we are really pushing the boundaries of what this car can actually do, like proper four-wheelie drive stuff in this thing, which makes it more than just, you know, a lot of these sort of Nissan Qashqai type stuff are just a very tall hatchback, like a bloated Astra. This is proper off-road credentials just here, so very exciting indeed. But moving back in front of the driver, we have got a lovely steering wheel, and check this thing out, chunky flat bottom. This is the GT line, so we've got the chunky flat bottom leather steering wheel, loads of controls for audio, navigation, everything else on here as well. Feels really good. Horn in the centre. That's a dynamically thrusting 21st century PARP going on there, on a sort of round separated thing with shiny satin underneath. This is a lovely steering wheel. We've got piano black in the doors. We've got two-tone contrast with the satin, some faux leather in there. On the driver's side, it's interesting how things really haven't changed. This one part of the car has just evolved steadily. Everything else has changed quite radically, but this is still 4 electric windows, central locking mirrors. Apart from when the mirrors were on the dashboard on the Mark 1, things have really stayed very much the same. Look at these seats, the two-tone, I don't know if it's leather, real leather, or again, very good fake leather. These diamond perforation patterns, absolutely fabulous. And the contrast piping, contrast stitching, really good looking chairs, very comfortable as well. Of course, continues into the back. No sunroof in this particular car, but I guess that could have just been an option thing. We've also got air vents in the back, everything we expect in a car today, which is just so much. Now, while I guarantee you've seen this signature Kia grille of the Mark IV in your rearview mirror more than once, you might not have noticed the Mark V just yet. It's only been on the market for about 1.5 years, but it is selling like hotcakes. 50,000 sold so far. But this is once again an all-new ground-up design, so no carryover. This is also designed specifically for the European market, so it's tailored for our tastes over here apparently. So yet again, a bigger SUV, but the styling has become notably more aggressive. The interesting signature grille here has grown extensively, and it's also multi-tone, so it's a big black grille, but with silver inserts. There's a lot of work's gone into this, and the headlights themselves are little works of art. This long, tapering V on the front giving a feeling of motion, even when the car's standing still, and the lights being down here. The lights, more lights hidden here in the grille. It's a very interesting bit of design, but we've also evolved those little creases, those bonnet shapes, so you can see the evolution, but at the same time it's a bit of a revolution as well. So lots of interesting stuff stylistically going on with this one. And around the back of the cars, you really can see how Pierce's rear end has been evolved onto Daniel's. Much sharper, much more creased looking, with virtually the same layout if you squint, but so much more creased and edgy and angular and aggressive. This is offered with 8 trim levels and 6 powertrain options, but sadly none of those options included a rear-mounted spare wheel. Now moving right up to date, fully body colour door handles, a little button for locking and unlocking, but this also has proximity aware, so as you walk up with the key in your pocket, it will unlock itself for you. Climbing inside, we've still got our same little layout for the mirrors and things. Far more interesting stuff going on with the door handles, so check out this big kind of hoopy thing, very cool. Plus we've got memory seats as well, 2-position memory. Got a padded faux leather thing in the armrest. Oh, I'm moving forward, the seat moved forward to greet me, that's exciting. And check out this whole doodad with the screens. Let's wake this thing up again. What we've got here, an entirely digital dashboard, touch screen in the centre. Now fortunately, although it is touch screens, no physical buttons, it is quite common sense. It's not hidden like in Volkswagen's dreadful system with stuff hidden in menus for real basic controls. It's all nice and easy to use. In front of the driver we have got, looks more realistic than the real ones do with this lighting and shading on the dial, but because this is also the first generation to gain a hybrid system as well, we've got our eco charge and power and stuff in here as well. So this is a petrol engined car, but with batteries and motors and things as well. What is quite cool is the design. We've got exemplary T-shelf action over here, so huge flat space for your modern thrusting afternoon tea activities. On the doors we've got like a shimmering pressed metal effect look. Got piano black, we've got satin silver, and these really interesting arrow-like shapes which are not the same at all around the car. So we've got a slight mirror of that one over here. That one's off to the centre. There's these flat ones over there, a little flat one in the middle. Oh, yeah, it's all over the place. It's great. This is like a textured faux metal effect, which is really cool. The hazard lights actually looks like a little piece of jewellery in the centre just is. Moving down into the centre console, which is very big and imposing now, huge. You'll notice, first of all, there is no gear shift anymore. So you're now looking at, because it's a hybrid, a rotating gear selector system, and I do mourn the loss of an actual gear shift because I do much prefer that. In this area here, which can be concealed or revealed on this rather nice sliding, again, piano black. Piano black looks lovely, but I do not like it a lot because it gets so dusty. We've got a 12-volt socket for legacy stuff. We've got the inductive charging area here for your phone, so you can charge your Mars bars. Got USB-A, but now we've got USB-C as well. Back here we've got so many exciting things. We've got heated and cooled seats, which is astonishing. We've got a heated steering wheel, which I can promise you is something you didn't know you needed. Start-stop button, the rotating thing, drive modes, hill descent control, amazing. Huge area for the cups, which I've seen this in Kias before. I love this feature. Wow, so much fun. Rolling back. If you've got kids, do not allow them in the front of the car because they will be doing this for as long as your journey lasts. Moving back to the dashboard, the steering wheel is very much a small evolution of the previous generation. This is also GT line, so we've got a ton of kit and it does feel quite sporty. And these drive mode things will do so much on the huge screens in front. Oh, it did stuff. It did stuff. I didn't mean to do stuff. Let's try the horn test. Wow, that is a hybrid pop of the future. Of the seating, check out these bad boys. Sculpted or body-hugging sports seats with the perforated leather in the centre with the repetition of the Kia face in the pattern. Got the Alcantara with the venting for the cooling. Got the contrast stitching and piping. Got the really cool headrests. We've even got these little soft kind of rubber-lined areas so the kids can put their devices in the back. You can hang your suit in there or you can put your device in there. It's got literally everything. And check out the size. There's pandemic roof up here. This is an astonishingly nice interior. We've even got the Alcantara door card, so the whole thing just feels hushed and quiet and nice. Feels incredibly modern indeed. You can see how massively these things have evolved from the Mark 1 through to this car. So different from just 3 simple dials to an entire panorama in front of you. But really the ultimate test is going to be out on the road, so let's start driving from 1 to 5. Right, so here we are in the Mark 1 and it does feel so different. It feels like sitting really high up, like in a Land Rover or something. Our lights are on this side, as are our indicators on the right hand side, so all very curious and interesting. Wipers are over here on the right and they move downwards to turn on, which is quite weird. Wow, it's a proper farmyard notchy style gear shift. We're in 4 high. So let's hit on the road. Oh, it feels like a proper old Range Rover spec thing. I'll get my mind around how this works. It's so easy to use. Is the steering wheel adjustable? No, I don't think it is. No, okay. So we are very much sitting in this position. We have got an airbag here on my side, nothing on your side sadly, so we're trying to crash. So a real notchy feeling to the gear shift down here. But what is really quite interesting is how lively it feels. The pedals are quite spongy and quite light. So very easy to pop the clutch down, very easy to rev it as well. A lot of play in the gear shift. This car has got 69,000 miles on it, so not very many at all. I mean, Kia engineering is pretty much up there with the unburstable variety. So I imagine this is exactly how it's felt from day one. It's not something it's worn into. Oh, the aircon's good because we're defrosted already. God, that river is very overflowing. In case you're curious, I'm filming this on the day of Storm Kieran, so yeah, the weather's interesting. Steering is really lovely and light. But typical body on frame kind of feel in that it's a jittery, jumpery kind of feel over the bumps, so the car feels very rigid because it is. But also feels like there's not tons of give around the suspension. However, if I was going to go just straight through that forest right now, don't worry Kia, I won't, it would do it with just wouldn't bat an eyelid. Just drop it into 4 low and keep going. But it does feel very much like a product of the 1990s because, well, got these thin A-posts, big windows, very tall, high roofline, so lots of airiness to the car. Feels lovely, but thin ABC posts, so huge visibility. I have no clue where I am. I'm just in the woods somewhere in the West Country. I could be anywhere, frankly. I'll tell you what, a day like today, big splash, way. Yeah, a day like today, the whole kind of proper 4-wheel drive aspect of this vehicle does make you feel very confident about you're going to be fine, even if this road was under a foot or two of water when I came back. No bother. Incidentally, if you're curious why someone like me, who has said on camera many times, don't use imperial measurements, feet are when you're talking for just random generalisations. If you want anything accurate, you use metric. It's not the most powerful car of the range by a long chalk. However, because it's such a small, light thing, it does actually feel very responsive. And we're not going quickly here, doing so under 40 miles an hour. But it's got that feeling of willingness and urgency that 90s cars really have. Those free revving, normally aspirated engines that have got a lovely, lovely rev to them. The brakes, let's do a brake test here. Whoa, you can feel it locking up and sliding a touch, but yeah, it might be all the leaves perhaps, but yeah, it generally feels pretty decent. Do you know what? I really like this car. But I like 90s cars anyway. I enjoy the simplicity of them. Right, so a bit more rapid motoring here. We've blasted to 40 miles an hour in a matter of minutes. It feels comfortable doing 40, to be honest. It feels like a happy place for it. Right, now we get the open road, de-restricted. Let's drop a cog. Wow. That's 55. Yeah, this does have the feel of an early Discovery in a way, but smaller, or an original Vitara. It's got that kind of chunky, go anywhere but fun feel about it. I like it a lot, but it does feel crude. It feels like something from a long time ago. Everything about the plastics, the buttons, it just is of a different era. And I mean that in a good way. Fifth gear feels like it's kind of happy at 60 miles an hour. It feels a bit like if there was a sixth gear that might be just getting a bit wheezy at this point and not really enjoying itself. Fifth feels quite happy at 60. As I say, this was an unusual car back in the early to late 90s, so they sold just under 11,000 of these things, which I guess for a niche product is actually not too bad, considering people didn't know what it was or what to do with it. But 11,000 was, of course, the lowest of all the sales figures of the generations. And this is a rare car now, and I cannot remember the last time I saw one of these in the wild anywhere. Okay. Whoa, check out this turning circle. My goodness. Also, check out that lovely little Art Deco garage. Also very cool. Okay, this is the 0 to 50. Well, so in summation of the Mark I, I really enjoy the simplicity. There's a certain element of crudity to it, but I really like this car. This is that lovely 90s. 90s was peak car. I say this all the time. There's enough technology and safety in this car that you could use it all year round. You could drive it till the wheels fell off. But at the same time, there's very little in the way of nannying. AI is not something you'll encounter on this car. The most advanced thing in here is probably the radio. Anyway, I like this. I enjoy this. I love the manual gearbox. I love the low range chunkiness of it. This is, yeah, just brilliant. It feels like I'm driving a proper little off-roader, and I'm really enjoying that. I wonder how this is going to fare compared to the second generation. Right, driving number 2, out of the rain at last. Oh my goodness. You'll notice the key one-upmanship continues throughout this range. Number 1, merely a blade key with central locking on the driver's door only. Number 2, remote central locking, but a blade key of course. We have got wind's picking up now. Right, So let's see what this thing's like on the road. What are the lights on this one? Same as before, on the end of the stalk, but we've got auto lights now. How exciting is that? Oh, I didn't notice when I was looking around previously. Four-wheel drive lock down here on the right-hand side. I missed that behind the steering wheel previously. And we've got traction control off, so good for off-roading. Nice bit of pedigree on this thing. Well, that's no way worrying to have that Clio with its reversing lights on towards me at all times. Now, already, mere moments into this drive, I'm noticing, first of all, well, two big things really. First of all, how much thicker the ABC posts are, so a bit of our visibility has gone. So a bit more penned in than we were previously, but also how much more solid this car feels than the 90s equivalent. The plasticky rattles have gone, the gear shift is now really tight through the gate, whereas before it was a bit of a wandery, like a Mark 1 Range Rover, waggly thing with plenty of vagueness built in. This is now far sharper. I previously mentioned my Mark II Hyundai Coupe. Like that, the exterior was incredibly gawky and a kind of weird looking thing, but the interior was really quite pleasant, very modern for the time, lots of silvery plastic, black plastic, and this is exactly the same as that. I believe this does share underpinnings with a Hyundai Tucson as well though, so that's to be expected. We do have rather useful variable intermittency on the wipers, which is super useful. Yeah, everything about this car suddenly feels more grown up than the old one. It feels like we've moved on enormously. We have got objects in the rear view mirror, may appear closer on the back, in fact both sides in fact. So a nod to the American market just there. Feels like we've got a lot more power behind the car as well. A bit more oomph from the engine, but the extra weight of the vehicle does mean that it doesn't feel quite as nimble and sprightly as the previous generation did. But we have got a bunch more safety. I'm sure the shell is stronger in this car than the previous one, but we've got a passenger side airbag now, so if we do have an accident, you're fine now. Don't need to worry. Now, while the gear shift feels lighter but notchier than before, the pedals feel a little heavier and a little stiffer, and the steering is a little heavier as well. Not heavy. It feels like there's more resistance from the power steering feeding back to you. Bog's a little going from first to second around 30, and off we go. We're on a 60 limit up here. It does feel a lot faster and a lot more capable at speed than the previous one, but this is now a car-based platform, so it's going to feel more capable on road. Much more reassuring, certainly 50 to 60 miles an hour. It doesn't feel like it's petering out of oomph. It feels like you're just getting started and there's a lot more to go. And of course we've got a 6-speed gearbox in this one, which means that we can be cruising at 70, 80 miles an hour and the engine won't be spinning like crazy in it. And hooning through these corners is actually quite pleasant. Now, of course, by the time the Mark II came out, we had proper competition from the likes of the Freelander and so many other vehicles. I think the BMW X3 might have been out by then as well. So they really had some stuff to benchmark against and make the thing a nice car to drive, because they had stuff to know what they're talking about. Because they were actual rivals by then, so you know they had to make it better than them, or at least as good. And you can feel that the engineers have been out and driven a lot of the rivals. Still got our turn signals on the left though, which is kind of weird. But it puts its power down very happily indeed. A little bit of wind noise, a little bit of road noise. It's a comfortable place to be. It's quite actually a civilised car to be driving. 60 miles an hour, 6th gear, we're now doing 2,000 RPM. Brilliant. This generation codename JE or KM was noticeably a better seller, 23,000 units sold compared to the 10,500 of the Mark 1. It does actually corner surprisingly well for a big old unit like this. has a bit of the 90s feel of connectedness, engagement. It's an odd looking thing, certainly, but it does drive nicely. Right, now climbing in the Mark III, things have changed yet again. Most notably, something I didn't notice on the initial walk around, it's got heated rear seats, for goodness sake. You don't get that in your tractor-based Mark I, do you? We're going to put the clutch down to start it as well. That's a new and exciting safety development. Oh, this dashboard is so exciting compared to previous. I'm going to put heated seats on because it's now 8 degrees outside. Big development. Indicators now on the left, like in, well, everything else in the world at this point. Lights are where on here with the indicators. So let's get out of here. God, the throttle is light on this car. And this is very much a stark contrast to the Mark I, and even a little bit to the Mark II, because the visibility is notably worse. The window frames are so much higher, the shoulder line is really right up here. But the construction, fit and finish, all that kind of stuff, again, it's moved up a notch. The gear change, which is much shorter throw again. The gear stick's been getting shorter and shorter and shorter. It feels like the next one you have to put your finger in a slot and move it. Keeping up at this rate, obviously you don't. Although by the 5th generation you kind of do. The accelerator pedal is ridiculously light. The clutch is about the same kind of heaviness. Gear shift, an awful lot more precise, but only a 5-speed now. But this is the generation of Sportage you probably think of when you think or hear the word Sportage, because this is where it became ubiquitous. They sold bucket loads of these things. Of the 3 generations I've driven so far though, this does feel the least responsive and most sluggish in terms of on-road manners. It's the other ones being slightly older cars with a bit less weight and a bit less technology in them. They just feel a bit more connected. This one feels like you push the accelerator and it's having to work a little bit harder to shift the weight of this bigger car. Obviously the 2.7 litre V6 would have solved that, but it would have bankrupted you with the MPG. Right, let's see what this thing's like. Hacking up to 60. Again, a strange little bog from 1st to 2nd around 30. I think it's the same engine, isn't it, from this one to the last one. Feels quieter though. Doesn't feel quite as brisk, but it definitely feels quieter. Feels lighter, interestingly, on its wheels. Of course, by the time this generation came out, the SUV was becoming far more prevalent. It was creeping into the psyche of the motoring public on a large level. So thanks to Peter Schreier's really nice styling on this car. Ooh, a Mark 6 Escort. It does look infinitely more modern and more, well, contemporary, current than the previous generations. But that slippery look also gave it the best aerodynamics and the best fuel economy of any of the Sportages to date. And it brought about the family look, the tiger nose they called it, with that particular grille on the front. So plus points for the Mark III. It looks so much better. It drives more car-likely, if you like. It's got nice, it feels quite light on its wheels, but the acceleration is kind of lacking compared to the sprightly, exciting 1st and 2nd generation cars. And the visibility is seriously reduced by these big, thick ABC posts, because obviously rollover safety became very much a thing. People, for some reason, didn't want to get squashed if their car rolled upside down. So picky. Okay, so generation 4 is singing to me. Keyless entry, keyless go, start, stopping majiggies. Manual seats though, you'll notice. Where are the heaters for these seats? This generation, they moved them over here. Still getting colder and colder by the minute. So let's, lights on, wipers on. And wow, this gear shift is light, nicely precise as well. I mean, it's such a shame that manuals are now being eradicated by manufacturers when they've got them this good now. The clutch, really nice and light. The gear shift, lovely short throw. It's shorter again. I said it's getting shorter every time, and it is. It's just a little movement of your palm to shuffle between the gears. It's fabulous. I think there's like 3 pubs in this tiny village and they all look really cute. sadly not staying here tonight, going home in a minute. Otherwise we'd have to try them all. This place is very lovely, but a lot of tourists. Middle of nowhere, 1,000 people taking selfies. Now this is very much more of the same in terms of what's happened with the last two generations, because the quality has just risen again. The way the doors shut, the way that the buttons feel, and there are so many lovely buttons in this car, it's fabulous. Visibility is actually a little better than the Mark III because the window frames just here have moved down a little bit so you can see out a little bit more. I'm hoping there's a reversing camera in this one, because one thing I noticed with the Mark III was that with that enormous slab of a tailgate, going backwards was actually a little bit tricky. It's okay when you're reversing on the open road because you can use the mirrors quite easily, but when you're actually moving into a parking bay, you can't see what's behind you. That is an option which I'm very much looking forward to seeing if I've got on this car. In fact, the A-posts don't feel quite as chunky either. I do wonder if there was criticism back at the time about the visibility, and so for the Mark IV they made some changes. Now this generation was an enormous sales success. Previous generation, the Mark III, shifted 95,000 units, which was again a big jump on the previous generation before it. But this one, 195,000 cars, which is, well, you're gonna need a bigger car park, aren't you, if I get that many in? And this is also the generation where they passed 5 million units sold. Can you believe 5 million Sportages in 2018? So it wasn't even the end of the run. They had another, what, 3.5 years to go when they did that. If you think about sort of the middle of the 20th century, when they talk about the millionth Mini or the millionth Morris Minor, millionth Volkswagen Beetle, those were just incredible landmarks for manufacturing. This thing, 5 million. Nice and easy, making a tight turn. A bit happier first to second in this one. Really does feel responsive. I have to watch the speed in this one actually. It feels way quicker than before. I can happily nip past the 60-mile-an-hour limit without even noticing. When it was launched, there was a choice of 3 engines and 2 transmissions. Thankfully, this one has got the 6-speed manual, tighter ratios, better economy, better cruising at the top. Nice punchy gearbox. This is definitely a better car with the manual gearbox in it. We've got a lot more technology though. We've got lane keep assist, which you can turn on. I won't because it's always rubbish. This car has evolved dramatically in the few years since the Mark III. Technology was just evolving so rapidly. The dashboard, well, not as exciting as the Mark III's dials upon dials, is very informative, very clear to read. I do like the graphics in the centre telling us what kind of economy we're doing. 24.7 if you're interested right now, but then I was hoofing it. Wow, that heated seat is powerful. I need to turn off or down a bit. That's going to set fire to my trousers. So yeah, thankfully it does have a reversing camera, although it's not the retractable type like I'm used to in the Mercedes, so it does get a little bit mucky on a wet day like today. Right, so the Generation 5, different car again entirely. Ooh, whizzy graphics as well as whizzy noises. Very exciting indeed. We've got electric seats now, so another big change up from previous. Let's turn the power on. Only 2 pedals in this car. Ooh, whizzy graphics again. It's very exciting. Because we're a hybrid, we've now got ready to start driving in here. I will obey safety rules and things and stuff. Honest, much more exciting. This is the first hybrid one, so the gear shift has gone completely. It's just this little dialy thing. Let's try reverse, and do we get, yeah, very crystal clear reversing camera just there, even with top-down view. So the technology in this car compared to the Mark I is just mind-blowing. Right, wipers on and off we go. Our little top-down view showing us how we're not going to collide with the wall or the Mark IV, hopefully. Or if we do, it'll give us a great view of it. So now for the first time in Sportage history, we are driving electrically. Very quiet. So pulling away on petrol power now. This kind of brings together the feeling of a few of the generations actually, because we've got the sprightliness of the very early cars thanks to the more powerful petrol plus the electric, but we've also got the astonishing build quality, and they really do screw a car together well. every generation, the door slam and the quality of the fit and finish has just improved a little bit. And so now I'm driving this block of stuff which feels like it can never break. The visibility has actually improved yet again. With a little quarter light just there, the window frames aren't too bad. I can sort of see out a bit better, and the mirrors are a little bit bigger as well. Although I'm no longer being warned that objects in them may be closer than they appear. Yeah, this has got the most oomph of any of them I've driven so far. We've also got the LED headlights, which now are getting a bit dusky and dark. And wow, another difference I've just noticed, the rear wiper is top mounted, so it swings down rather than up. That's groundbreaking. But this car is by far the most loaded with technology, with toys as well. So even when we've not got the sat-nav turned on, we've got our mapping thing happening just here. And our little sparkly stuff over here. Ooh, fun. Yeah, this is the one you most easily lose your license in, that's for sure. 60 comes up very rapidly indeed. Ergonomically, I think this is probably the best as well, although the seating position in number 1 was actually really good. You've got more information in front of you. This is just more of everything in this car. The only thing that, oh gosh, oh no, the lane keep assist is involved. Don't want lane keep assist. How do I turn that off? It tells me the weather, it tells me where I am. There is so much stuff happening here. Now Morris Minor, fantastic. Still got a great turning circle. I must admit the eco thing for the 48-volt hybrid battery is a little distracting, because I'm the kind of person who constantly wants to know what's going on. Now we have got the flappy paddles on this thing, so we can... Oh, it's done 2 gears for me, that was fun, I didn't do that. Hold it in 4th through a corner. Will it hold through a 4th? Will it change up? No, it's doing it. It's holding in 4th. That's good. We've caught up with the Morris Minor. So there we go. This is the Sportage. 30 years, 5 generations, well over 5 million cars sold. What an epic anniversary. Happy birthday, Kia Sportage, and well done being the best-selling car in Kia's range by quite a long way. I mean, like all those SUVs, it says a lot about the buying public's psyche at the moment, that despite all the incredible saloons and estates and hatchbacks and things that Kia make, the SUV is currently their biggest selling car. Will it stay this way? I don't know. Will we see a resurgence of the Kia Pride in coming years? Who knows? Let's have some cake. Now, if I had to choose one to be my favourite to take away and drive, if I wanted an everyday car, I suppose, sensible hat on, I'd have to take the Mark V. It's clearly the most comfortable, the most useful, the most usable every day in the modern world. But if it was heart-rolling things, you know which way I'm going, don't you? You know, it's always going to be the 90s car for me. Kia aren't getting the keys to this one back. See you later. Like, subscribe.
Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the furious fleet and for yours, with 10% off using code FD10. Follow the links in the description below.